alerts, enabling cell phone users to get important messages. MPT's infrastructure is about more than sending our TV signal. It's also about supporting public safety, and we thought you ought to know.
University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, leading the way on Chesapeake Bay restoration, while guiding our state, nation, and world toward a more sustainable future.
UMBC offers professional applied master's degrees, where learning with industry colleagues is enhanced with a wealth of network connections. Claim your future.
71 acres in downtown Baltimore devoted to learning, discovery, care, and service. We train the professionals who secure the health, well-being, and just treatment of Maryland citizens. We create the knowledge that cures disease and strengthens communities across the state and around the world. UMB makes the world more just, more enlightened, healthier, and more humane. We are UMB.
This program is made by MPT to enrich the diverse communities throughout our state and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you.
Debating lawsuits for hate crimes.
What we're trying to do again is just to give victims additional redress.
This bill does not have appropriate guardrails.
A partial truce in the map wars.
We have, in many cases, come together with the leaders of both houses and gotten things done.
And some farewells to Annapolis.
We're here for but a minute with 60 seconds in it.
For 40 years, connecting Marylanders to their government, this is State Circle.
Good evening. Welcome to State Circle for the final full week of the General Assembly session. There was heated debate this week on a bill to allow victims of hate crimes to sue for civil damages. Nancy Yamada has the story.
Does the person have to be convicted criminally of a hate crime before they can sue civilly?
No, they do not.
That was at the crux of heated discussions on the House floor over a bill which would allow victims of hate crimes to pursue damages in civil court.
What we're trying to do again is just to give victims additional redress, okay? So you can actually have someone that is prosecuted for a hate crime, but also we want to do for the victim something else, and that is to provide them with damages as a result of a hate crime.
This bill does not have appropriate guardrails. The required amount of evidentiary certainty for a civil case is lower.
Opponents of the bill believe it could be misused by anyone who's simply offended by someone's opinion.
We have freedom of speech in this country, and I think this bill looks at a way to almost silence any type of opposition against that freedom of speech.
Some worry peaceful protesters outside abortion clinics, for instance, will be targets for civil lawsuits.
This is another politically correct cancel culture attack the conservative movement.
Ultimately, a judge will decide if a building was vandalized or a noose or swastika was left in order to threaten or intimidate someone based on their race, religious beliefs, or sexual orientation.
We're talking about not thoughts, but actual actions, hate actions. And if you were suing on this bill that we're talking about, you would actually have a damage done to you that you were asking the court to make you whole.
The House bill ultimately passed with everyone agreeing hate crimes are egregious.
And if you perpetrate hate on someone, you should pay a price.
But divided by party line over who might be harmed as a result.
Hate crimes are in essence thought crimes. If a white person hits a black person, there is a presumption that it is a hate crime. You all are in the majority now, and your opinions have a great deal of weight. Consider when and if you should
Gentlemen, can you explain who's the you all and in the majority? Who's the you all?
Oh, the you all is my colleagues in the opposite side of the aisle from myself. Obviously, it's not us.
I just wanted clarification who the you all was. That's all.
I'm Nancy Yamada for State Circle.
There was also heated discussion on a bill aimed at building on last year's police reform measures. The bill would allow the Attorney General's office to prosecute officers involved in civilian deaths. If the Independent Investigation Division chooses not to, the local state's attorney would be able to prosecute.
You're going to have an independent voice and eye look at an officer-involved death that occurs in our state. It just removes that element of perceived, real or not, undue influence and conflict. It's a best practice, and if you were a law enforcement officer, you would actually invite this, because if you're not doing anything wrong, which the vast majority of our law enforcement officers are not, this is just an independent look at what's going on.
This is not needed, and sends the message, once again, our General Assembly, by passing this, if we pass this, sends the message that we don't trust law enforcement, and that all the people the kind of people that show up to a protest when there's an officer-involved shooting, but don't show up to protests when there's a massacre, are the kind of people that think this bill is a great idea and needed. It feeds into that idea that there's this systemic problem and that it's the main crisis in violent communities is policing.
The Senate approved the measure. It's unclear if the House will take action before the end of session on Monday. The fight over Maryland's redrawn congressional districts ended this week. Lawmakers dropped their appeal of a judge's ruling that their first map was gerrymandering, and the governor dropped his objections to the legislature's second map.
Talking about trying to fix the broken process so that we could have free and fair elections, and we stopped the gerrymandering, which was described as the worst in America. And we've now done that to a certain extent, but I still want that bill passed. But we've gotten a lot done, and I just want to thank, although we don't always agree, we have, in many cases, come together with the leaders of both houses and gotten things done. We did it with the Relief Act last year. We did it with the retirement tax elimination this year. And, reluctantly, with the help of the court, we've also got them to move forward on the fair map.
The state's high court will hear a challenge next week to the new districts for delegates and state senators. An attempt to extend Maryland's 30-day gas tax holiday failed this week. Comptroller Peter Franchot had lobbied for his original 90-day proposal. Republican delegates tried to amend that onto another bill and failed. Taxes will go back up at the pump on April the 17th. Big improvements could be in store for Maryland state parks. The story from Sue Copen.
It's a little quiet here at Sandy Point State Park along the bay just outside of Annapolis. Well, except for the herd of deer. But even the deer probably know business is booming at state parks all around Maryland.
From 2010 to 2020, park visitation increased by 100%. It went from about 10 million to about 21 million in the pandemic year of 2020, because people had no place else to go.
Mel Poole knows a thing or two about parks. He's currently the president of the nonprofit group Friends of Maryland State Parks, but he spent 37 years with the National Park Service.
In Maryland, we probably generate about 13,000 jobs in the state economy, and we probably have about $1.3 billion in economic impact every year. It's generated by state parks.
Maryland's state park system includes 53 general state parks, 25 natural resources management areas, 7 natural environmental areas, 3 rail trails, and 2 state battlefields. But the parks have not kept up with the growth in popularity and use.
Just decades of underfunding from a critical maintenance standpoint, from a staffing standpoint, certainly not having enough parks in the kind of central Maryland population center, and so they just couldn't keep up pace.
State Senator Sarah Elfreth was part of a special legislative committee last fall that looked at the problems facing the state's parks and searched for a solution. The answer is in the bill now on the governor's desk.
It will address that critical maintenance backlog that we talked about, which is anywhere from 60 million to 100 million, and that's not new amenities. That's kind of fixing the things that are broken. But it will also provide funding for 100 new staff members in state park service.
Mel Poole says another key feature of the bill, providing better access.
We're going to try to do a better job of putting parks where people are, where underserved communities are, and where we can't do that, we're going to try to put in transportation centers that takes people to parks.
We would love to find an opportunity for a state park along the Metro line, and we think we found an opportunity in Prince George's County for exactly that reason. Not every Marylander has a car, but they still deserve access to a beautiful green space.
The bill also creates a commission meeting quarterly that will seek the public's input.
We want to make sure this isn't just one piece of legislation, but we're actually creating a structure in which more people can continue to be involved in state park planning.
As well as to get them out, and maybe even to join with the deer in enjoying all that the state's parks have to offer. In Annapolis, Sue Copen for State Circle.
Our newsmaker this week is the retiring chair of the House Appropriations Committee, Delegate Maggie McIntosh. Madam Chair, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. Wonderful to be here.
Lots to talk about. Let's start with the budget. It's been sort of a fat fiscal year. The Treasury is full. Economic storm clouds may be on the horizon. How does this budget fit with that environment?
A very good question. One of the things that we did in this budget cycle, given that we did have a surplus, it was historic, and it's due in part to the federal help that we have gotten in the state through this pandemic. It's also due to our economy is doing great. So we tried to do three things. One, pay for the bills that we'd already passed, pay for the blueprint for Maryland's future. Two, keep our reserves healthy and repay our reserves where we needed to. So we have the most well-fed rainy day fund right now that we've had in decades. And I think that's important for Marylanders to know. So we kept over $2 billion in reserves. And then we passed very needed programs, I believe, to help lift families and businesses out of this pandemic. We also did tax relief, because when you have a surplus, you can do tax relief. So our over 65 tax relief for Marylanders, which was signed into law by the governor just last week, will go into effect almost immediately.
The over 65 tax cut that you mentioned, the governor bills it as a retiree tax cut. You're going to be retired, so I imagine you know the details of this. How is it going to work?
I do. Well, it's for anyone over the age of 65, retired or not. If you have an income of $100,000 or less, you will get a $1,000 tax credit on your Maryland state taxes. If you are a married couple and you make $150,000 combined, you will get a $1,750,000 tax credit off your Maryland taxes. So this is going to be, I think, it affects, by the way, 80% of the folks in Maryland over the age of 65. So this will be very good. But if you are over the age of 65 and you're still working and you're making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $99,000 a year, you will get this tax credit.
Just be sure not to, if you're making 99, you don't want to make that extra 1,000, right?
No, you don't.
Let me ask you about the end of session. We had that tax cut. We've had some end of session spending. Is that prudent, or, is it a combination of a big surplus and it's an election year?
It is a combination of a big surplus, the ability to fund some programs that we have wanted to for a long time. For instance, the dental program in our Medicare, program, and be able to do the state side of that. The other, couple of big programs that we put away money for, obviously the blueprint, $800 million we set aside to pay for the blueprint in the future.
Which is education.
That's right, our education reform. We have done a whole lot really in the area of healthcare this, session, which I think is, very symptomatic, or, one would expect given what we've gone through. So, public health our providers, the providers of public health in this state, the people who provide services to disabled folks in this state, our nursing homes, our hospitals, they're all getting rate increases, which is very important.
Let's talk about Baltimore a little bit. There's money in the budget. Harbor Place is over 40 years old. It's probably one of the best known spots in Baltimore, fallen on hard times. And there's money in the budget to could help with the revitalization of that spot. My question is, it was basically a shopping mall next to the water at a time when there wasn't a lot of retail there. Now there's retail all over Pratt Street. So what's the argument for the state helping with that?
Well, I think the new developer, by the way, who's a Baltimore man, said it best. That's Baltimore's front porch. And it has been a huge, huge tourist attraction in the last 40 years. And it's gone in decay. It just, when I say decay, it's just that as really good shops moved out, kind of second-rate shops moved in. I mean, for Hooters, for goodness sakes, I think probably the folks who envisioned Harbor Place would have never thought that a Hooters would have been there. Sorry if I'm offending anybody.
I think it's the only thing left on the Light Street side.
I know, it's just, it's astonishing to me. But I want to tell you a story, and I really do want to share this with you. About a month ago, knowing that there was an imminent decision on somebody getting to redevelop Harbor Place, my wife and I and our two dogs, two Labradors, walked the perimeter of Harbor Place. Now, I live in North Baltimore. I don't go to Harbor Place like I used to, because the shops and restaurants that I liked and many other people liked have left. I was shocked. You know what I was shocked at? The number of families with small kids that are in that Harbor Place using the Science Center, the aquarium, the ships, the parks. Rash Field was covered with little children and their parents. And so was across the way a new little field, a new little park, over on the other side near Pier 6. So I will tell you that people are using Harbor Place, but they're not going, they're using the harbor, but they're not going to Harbor Place. And so I think this is an important, really transformational, I hope, ingredient that we will have in downtown Baltimore. And might I say that the developer graduated from our Baltimore City schools? He's a City College graduate.
Let's turn to your legacy a little bit. When you announced your decision to retire, you asked a rhetorical question, did I make a difference? And you look back 22 years ago when you became the first openly gay member of the General Assembly. Take us back to that time, that decision, and how you think it may have influenced other people.
Right. Well, thank you for that question and allowing me to elaborate on those times. It was during a time when we had passed a bill on public accommodations for people who either identified as gay or lesbian, or frankly, as somebody else identified you. You may not even be interested in a gay or a lesbian lifestyle. But people were being discriminated against, particularly in housing. And many times on jobs, if an employer thought that an employee was gay or lesbian, they would find a reason to fire them. So we passed this bill, and it was being petitioned to referendum in the state of Maryland. And I was very involved in the movement to stop that referendum from actually ever happening. But it was during that period that I thought it was important that people, my colleagues, my constituents, who didn't already know, they should know that I'm one of these people who could be discriminated against. So I, quote, came out. It was probably one of the most rewarding moments of my life, other than the day I got married. And that is because I got notes, I got calls, I got emails from people all across the state, actually all across the country, but in particular, I heard from parents of children who were struggling with their own sexual identity, or were not struggling, were out, just said thank you. Thank you for you being authentic, me being authentic, and thank you for helping to make this world a better place, Maryland a better place to raise our authentic kids. And so I absolutely view that as one of the best periods of my life.
You've risen to the highest levels of leadership in the state. Your advice for the rookies coming in next year, whoever might replace you, what have you learned along the way that might help them?
Well, I think one of the blessings that I had coming into the legislature, I just came off this job with a United States Senator by the name of Mikulski, where I was her state director and actually ran her campaign, re-election campaign. So I had a statewide perspective when I walked on the floor the first time in the House of Delegates. I would say to people who come behind me, get out of your district, at least listen.
Our thanks to Delegate McIntosh. A number of retiring state senators gave farewell talks this week.
So people asked me when I first got elected to the House, what do you think? I said, well, I tell them one thing. I said, I can count. I said, I'm one delegate out of 188 legislators. I represent one county and a little piece of another county. And I'm a part of the minority party. And I said, I need to make some friends. And I need to make some friends on this side of the aisle. And I think over the years I've done that.
We're here for but a minute with 60 seconds in it. We didn't seek it, we didn't choose it, but must suffer if we lose it, give account if we abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. Thanks so much for indulging me, colleagues. Thank you.
Morgan State University honored one of its most storied alumni, Earl Graves Sr. Charles Robinson has the story.
You raise me up so I can stand on mountains.
The deep love and respect you have shown to my dad will never be forgotten. As many of you have traveled from all over the world and made great sacrifices to participate in this tribute.
He was a larger-than-life figure whose mere presence unapologetically pushed you to become better than you were. When you came in contact with those who have overcome such unsurmountable obstacles and achieved greatness, it causes most excuses for accepting mediocrity to ring hollow. He was unawed by opinion, unseduced by flattery, and undismayed by disasters. There are those today who will rightfully highlight his business acumen, his gregarious and popular demeanor, his political savvy as displayed through the campaign of Bobby Kennedy, and of course his many well-earned accolades and awards.
The event was 2 years in the making. Earl Graves Sr.'s death came at the height of the COVID-19 epidemic. Graves, whose name adorns the school's business school, never forgot his alma mater and asked his family to share his legacy with the school. It was emotional. The native New Yorker was born in 1939. He came to Morgan as a track phenom, graduating in 1957. As an ROTC cadet, he would join the Army. He would meet and marry Barbara, his wife, in 1960, beginning a family that included his 3 sons. Soon, he delved into politics, joining the presidential campaign of Robert Kennedy. With Kennedy's assassination in 1968, Grave laid plans to launch Black Enterprise magazine in New York City. It would be a showcase of Black businesses, self-help, and investing. He wanted to change the narrative of African Americans. A lot of people talk about Graves being a visionary, but that vision became real at Morgan State College. The crowd in attendance was a collection of his fraternity brothers, entrepreneurs, fans, and those who were set on a path they could only dream of. At Morgan State University, I'm Charles Robinson.
For the Political Roundtable this week, MPT's Charles Robinson joined by Brian Witte of the Associated Press. Gentlemen, at our taping time, the governor is considering vetoes of a number of bills that the legislature passed in time to make him decide in advance of the legislature adjourning on Monday.
Well, let's begin with a bill he did not sign, but allowed to go into law, and that is the so-called Ghost Guns bill. Brian, why don't you explain what this Ghost Gun bill is?
Well, they're called ghost guns because they do not have serial numbers on them. So they are not traceable in law enforcement investigations. Attorney General Brian Frosch came out strongly in favor of banning these. He says that they are on the rise, that they are available on the internet. And even children or minors are able to get these by ordering them over the internet and basically making a gun at home that after it's used, it basically can't be traced. So and the governor said that he appreciated the efforts behind doing this and the effort to make streets safer, but he basically said that he wants to see more action on some priorities he's pushing.
I just have about a minute, so let's bring everybody up to speed on what happens next on legislative redistricting. The Court of Appeals will hear it next week.
That's correct. And part of that is this idea that those districts are similar to some of the districts in the congressional, but the Court of Appeals has had a judge already say that he doesn't think there is a challenge that's worthy to go to the Court of Appeals.
Brian, is there a chance that the judges of the Court of Appeals act differently than their former colleague advises?
Well, they certainly haven't closed the door on anything, so I don't think you can rule that out. They very well could do something.
Brian Witte joining us from the historic basement of the historic State House. Brian and Charles, thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
Thanks a lot.
That is State Circle for this week. Thank you for watching and have a good night.
We at Sage Policy Group recognize that this is a challenging period for households and businesses. But Marylanders are intelligent, strong, inventive, and entrepreneurial. Eventually, this economy will bounce back stronger than ever.
Salisbury University educates tomorrow's professionals with graduate programs to advance your career. Earn your master's online in business, nursing, or GIS. Study social work online or at satellite.